I've got a story,
Okay,
but
let's hear it.
you're going to have to imagine this a little bit. You have to picture it. So you're a law enforcement officer and you're serving a search warrant and you're looking for illegal guns or something to that effect. So you start your search and you're looking around. But instead of finding firearms, you find a bucket. And in the bucket, there's a severed head. And you find feet, people's hands, bones, personal effects,
Are we at Ed Gein's house?
just about.
Oh, God.
And all of these pieces belong to over 20 missing people from a neighboring town.
What?
So that's what we're talking about today.
I was to say, that didn't happen to you in real life.
No.
What would you do in that moment if that happened to you in real life? I mean, I'm assuming it's never happened to you when you were a police officer.
No.
But.
I don't even know. I don't even know. But this did happen.
Oh.
And it happened in Canada with Robert Pickton. And that's what we're talking about today.
I'm going to be real honest. I had never heard of Robert Pickton.
I hadn't either, and I don't know how I come across his name.
I don't either.
We can talk about Robert. So Robert Pickton grew up in Canada, and the town was Port Coquitlam, I believe it's pronounced. And it's in British Columbia, and it's just outside of Vancouver by about 17 miles, so it's pretty close. So he was born in about 49, and his folks had this really big pig farm. And he had a couple of siblings. And they were raised on this farm, except for his sister. I think his sister, at some point, she was sent to live with relatives because the parents felt like a hog farm was no place to raise a little girl. So it was just Robert, his brother David, his mom, and his dad. And in his childhood, his dad apparently was abusive. And his mom raised the boys, but she really focused on the boys working on the hog farm. So that was kind of the priority. And it wasn't necessarily hygiene, and I'm not even sure how much on education.
Yeah.
So,
yeah. Go ahead.
But and it's funny because his childhood it kind of seems like Ed Gein in a way, with the abusive father, and he had this attachment to his mother. At least that's what I read. Of course, the records aren't great for his childhood in Canada. And I think Canada has some sort of a deal where it's really hard to get information out of there. So anyways, he mainly works a hog farm, and his mom works him pretty hard. He does go to school with his brother, but he ends up like repeating the second grade. He has trouble in school. Ultimately, I think he drops out. Mm-hmm. And so after school, after he drops out, he goes on to become a butcher. And he works as a butcher for about 7 years. And then after that, he comes back to the hog farm that his parents own to help with the hogs or whatever else they do on a hog farm. I don't even know. Never worked one.
Yeah. He has his own like memoir, like his own like audio library, like not library, but he does some like audio recording on some tapes, like like a voice diary type thing.
I seen that, and one time he wrote a book too.
Yeah, so I got listened to a few snippets of that audio those audio recordings. And he said I think he flunked the second grade twice, and then he got held back in the third grade. And he ultimately dropped out of school at age 14, which if you get held back a couple, 3 times, I mean, 14 years old, he's probably only in the 6th grade by this point, even though age-wise he would have been.
Sure, in the 8th or 9th, but
yeah,
you get held back once or twice.
He said he said he had a good life, but he had a hard life, which I feel like he was trying to stay positive, but he said, yeah, I had a really hard life. And I don't know if part of that was just because of his schooling. He said, I never really took lunch or recess because I was always behind in class and I was always trying to catch up.
One of the stories from his childhood is he was raising a pet calf. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw this.
Yep.
And it come up missing and he couldn't find it. So he searched the farm and he goes into the butcher shop. And there's the calf.
On the property.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was his pet. And I don't know if his dad was, like I said, abusive earlier, that he did this to be mean.
I think it was actually his mother, because his mother's the one that told him to go look in the barn.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Which is, I mean, I can't imagine as a kid. I mean,
the story goes is he asked his mom where the calf was, can't find the calf. She says, go look in the barn. And there the calf was slaughtered. And she ended up serving him on a plate for the next meal.
I mean, I shouldn't laugh because I can't imagine the trauma as a kid. And obviously his childhood was rough.
Yeah.
So slaving away on a hog farm where your mom prioritizes, that sort of a work and not your hygiene. You go to school, you're probably getting teased because you smell. Yeah. And then you have a pet that you can't find. And when you do find it, it's hanging up in your slaughter barn or your slaughter shed or whatever it is.
Yeah. And I have to admit, I didn't do as much research as I typically do because I think I was late to the game and figuring out who we were doing and just kind of preoccupied with other stuff. But it's hard to know which parent was actually more abusive, because I heard a witness say, or a friend of the family that did some interviews say, that his dad was actually just kind of lazy. And so that's why those boys had to work so hard on the farm, is because the dad didn't do much. And his mother was actually quite a bit younger than their father, like 16 years. And she was really aggressive, and she wore the pants in the family. So I'm not so sure it was the dad that was abusive. I don't know. But it said she was really, she would come out yelling all the time, and she was not a very attractive woman. She had some missing teeth, and when she'd come out and yell and screech, nobody could really understand what she was saying, and I don't know.
Well, Ed's not a very attractive guy.
You mean Rob? You mean
Robert?
Yeah.
Ed. I think I've got
who actually went by Willie, by the way.
He did go by Willie.
Mm-hmm.
So let me see. I think I have a picture.
Yeah, the friend of the family described her as having very thinning hair, and she must have had a PCOS problem or something, because she was actually growing a mustache and a beard, plus then had no teeth. So,
the mom was?
Yeah.
I've seen a woman like that before.
I mean, I have too. That's why I said it's probably a PCOS problem, yeah.
So
yeah,
this is Robert.
Which I can imagine
Robert Pickton.
He probably looked like his mother.
I'm
kidding. Put a dress on him and it could be his mom.
But yeah, he's a kind of a creepy looking dude.
Mm-hmm.
But the story gets creepy.
Yeah.
But just to move on. So ultimately, his parents die in the late 70s. And he and his brother and his sister inherit the farm. Now, they don't want to continue to operate this big farm, so they begin selling off bits and pieces of it. And by the time that they got those pieces sold,
Well,
they
yeah,
had
I
amassed
think.
like $5 million.
Well, I was gonna say, I think they were developing, so they were developing into that area, and developers were wanting to buy
Yeah.
the land, and so that's why, they made so much money. I don't know that they necessarily wanted to get rid of it, but it said they had 600 acres.
Which is quite a bit. And I don't know
Yeah.
what
And then they ended up keeping 6.5
6
acres.
acres.
And that just had the trailer. I don't know if there was another house, but then like the barn, and then the shed where they did the actual butchering.
And I believe they had a salvage yard on the property too. And that's what his brother David, I believe was his name. That's what he operated. So Robert continued to operate somewhat of a small hog farm. And then David had the salvage yard.
Yeah, and just think of what an eyesore, all these new houses and developments going up, and then and you have this salvage yard and pig farm. Can you imagine the smell? I wouldn't want to live in one of those newly developed houses next door.
They did find some way to offset this a little bit, so far as the disgust is. So they started throwing big parties, and they were known for these massive parties. So they'd actually taken one of the buildings that was on the hog farm, and they converted it into, I don't know if you want to call it a civic center type of a place where they would host these parties, and they called it Piggy Palace. So, and they would throw parties in here. There were up to 2,000 people is what I read.
Yeah.
So anyways, the town come down on him, wanted to close it down. So he and his brother decided that they're going to open and start a nonprofit.
Yes. Well, yeah.
But we got to talk about the name of the nonprofit because it's brilliant.
Right. Yeah. Go ahead.
It's the Piggy's Palace. What was the rest of that?
Good Time
Society. Piggy's Palace Good Time Society. What a great name.
So a story is the sister, now her name's Linda, she was actually on, and I don't know what they call it in Canada, but she was like on some board for like what is Justin Trudeau? They don't call him president. Is he prime minister? What is
Prime Minister.
So it's like on the board, the prime minister's board was this Linda Pickton. And so she's ultimately the one that wrote it up as a charity. And all the parties and concerts and raves that they would have there, then they would raise money for this charity. Supposedly that the money would go to the children.
And I believe what they stated is
for those listening, she air quoted.
For the children.
Yeah, because I'm going to tell a story at the end that might wonder why I said it that way.
So this all kind of occurred in the 90s, so far as the Piggy Palace and the Piggy's Palace Good Time Society. I wonder if that was an LLC. I don't know. But anyways, around the same time, in neighboring Vancouver, they were experiencing a problem. So people were coming up missing, and they were females. And typically they were the females, and it was like the downtown east side, I believe they called it. Primarily prostitutes, sex workers that were, probably wrapped up in some illegal drugs is the way I understand it.
Yeah. Would it be described as like your red light district type of area?
And Robert did kind of hang out in that area a little bit because there's a rendering plant down there. So as a part of his pig processing, he would probably take whatever he didn't need or whatever was left from the slaughtering of his pigs down to this rendering plant. And Robert had a bit of what would be called a proclivity. He liked the prostitutes. He liked sex workers.
Well, that's probably all he could get. I mean, look
I don't
at
know.
him.
Kind of a good looking guy. So,
And by the way, I mean, if they said he stunk like, obvious pig dust, pig shit, dead animal, dead carcass, and BO.
and I've worked in not a hog farm. They had hogs on a farm that I helped out with in high school. I can tell you from experience that that's a smell that just doesn't wash off.
Oh, right. Yeah.
So,
like I said, we raised hogs growing up too. And oh yeah, that it gets stuck in your nostrils. It's in your hair. It's bad. But anyway, I'm sure he smelled real good.
Oh yeah.
So, for him to attract a lady, I don't know.
So there was an incident that occurred once with Robert, where he had gone down to this downtown east side in Vancouver, and he'd picked up a sex worker, and he'd taken her home. And I've got her name, and it's Wendy Lynn. I think it's Eistetter, it's pronounced. So anyways, he takes the sex worker home, and I'm not exactly sure. Like the details are kind of sketch, but the main part is,
I don't know if they got to his house.
I think they got to the house, because I think in the house he had snuck and slapped a set of handcuffs on her, and a fight breaks out. So she's struggling with Robert, and a knife is introduced to this fight. And I'm not sure who stabbed who first, but they did it ultimately stab each other.
According to her.
I think she said that
he stabbed her.
Mm-hmm. She wrestled the knife away, mm-hmm. and she'd stabbed him, and she escapes. Mm-hmm. Now they both end up going to the hospital,
yes,
for their wounds, and they wind up in the same hospital.
Mm-hmm. So the details are that she goes there and she's still got this one handcuff on her. She ultimately gets to a roadway and stops a car and flags down a car and is, crying help and whatnot. And the car, whoever picks her up then ultimately takes her to the hospital. And yeah, she's got this handcuff on one arm and I think still has the knife in her, or she's carrying it.
And interestingly enough, they find the key to that handcuff in Robert's pocket. Mm-hmm. So anyways, they initially filed charges against Robert. I don't know if it was attempted murder or assault or whatever the case may be, but the case was dropped because law enforcement, prosecutors, whoever decided that because the victim was a sex worker involved with drugs, they felt that as a witness that she would have no credibility.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it was dropped and dismissed. But in the meantime, they do have these sex workers that are coming up missing. A lot of sex workers, 80s throughout the 90s. And Robert he's on their list of maybe suspects, but I don't think he's necessarily the top suspect, because there's other people that have already maybe been arrested and released for assaulting and maybe even in killing other sex workers. Mm-hmm. And there's still people that are reporting to law enforcement, hey, you need to check out this Robert. So there was even rumors that people were going to law enforcement saying, hey, he's got like pieces of bodies in refrigerators. So people make these complaints. They report to the police. Some of them are ignored. At some point, they'd actually went out to his house and searched, and apparently didn't find anything, and they leave. And then somebody reports that he has illegal firearms. And I don't know if they're just an unregistered firearm or something to that effect. And this is right around 2002. And so this is when law enforcement obtains a search warrant, because they want to go out and search the property, this hog farm, for these unregistered firearms. So we go out there and they start searching, and they start finding like personal effects that belong to these missing women.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if it's like prescription bottles or purses or things to that effect.
Yeah, one was an inhaler that had one of the victims' names on it.
So at that point, because the search warrant is for firearms, it's not for finding evidence of missing people, they have to go back and they have to do another search warrant. So they obtain another search warrant and they return and they begin searching the property. And in the search, I mean, it's still, so you said how many acres was it? I mean, even if it's just 6 acres, that's still fairly large compared to like a normal house with, it's a lot. And the government spends over $70 million excavating this property during the search. And they bring in heavy equipment. They're sifting through and digging through, all of the dirt on the property, all of the buildings. And during the search is when they find severed heads. They find victims' hands and feet removed from their bodies. They find bones, personal effects for over 20 women, like 27, I believe. Mm-hmm. And so ultimately, Robert's arrested. I think his brother might have been arrested at some point too, but Robert was arrested and then put in jail. Mm-hmm. But you're looking at me funny.
No, I'm just listening.
So they're getting ready for court, and something kind of interesting. I'm not sure why they do this. So in the end, he's charged with like 27 counts of murder. And the judge just decides he's going to split this up. And so the first case that goes to trial is for the murder of just 6 women. And of those 6, he ends up convicted of second-degree murder and sentenced to life in prison, which in Canada is the max. After that's done, instead of going forward with the other 20 cases, they stay him. They don't completely drop and dismiss, but they stay him. So they don't charge him, and he never goes to court for that. So a lot of people in Vancouver and in that area are, of course, pissed off at law enforcement because a lot of the women, or at least some of them, were Indigenous women. Mm-hmm. and women and drug users and sex workers. And so they think and they feel that the reason law enforcement didn't really press the issue or prosecutors anyway, the government, is because they're women, they're Indigenous women, they're drug users, they're sex workers, they don't matter.
Right.
And then ultimately, before anything can be done anyway, he's killed in prison. Mm-hmm. That's kind of it for that. For that anyway. So it's kind of crazy because first I'm reading
That's it for your part of the investigation, right? Because I got a lot more
before he was killed.
I can't remember what year he died.
It was 2023, I believe, because he was coming up for parole in 2024. So he was killed right before he came up for parole.
Now, something I didn't mention is while he was in jail before the trial, they put an undercover police officer in a jail cell with him. Mm-hmm. And Robert, in a conversation with this undercover cop, admitted to killing 49 women. Yeah. And he was disappointed because he felt like he was getting sloppy towards the end, and he really wanted one more because he wanted to hit the big 5-0, he says. Mm-hmm. But I don't know how many women were actually missing, but there was like 50 or 60 women missing kind of in that area in the 80s and into the 90s.
Yeah.
So, and I think he's listed as the most prolific serial killer in Canadian history. And certainly it was the largest search, most expensive search.
Yeah. Yeah, I think he wanted to be bigger than anybody in the United States. He wanted, like he mentioned Gacy, and I can't remember the other one he mentioned. He was pretty proud that he killed more than maybe the Green River Killer. I think they ultimately, when they were looking into these missing women, they were suspect that it could be linked to the Green River Killer.
I think I've seen that.
Uh-huh.
Now, the Green River Killer, was that in Seattle, Washington?
Seattle, because apparently where the pig farm is there's a close proximity to a railway and also a waterway, so it was easy would have been easy travel to Seattle area.
Yeah, in British Columbia, that part of Canada, and this port, I can never pronounce the name, like Coquitlam or whatever, Vancouver, basically, is just north of Washington, not very far.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, anyways, there was a big push afterwards. I guess some groups in Canada pressured law enforcement, and they started an investigation into law enforcement and how they handled the case. As former law enforcement, I guess I can kind of see where law enforcement would look at who the victims are and kind of shrug their shoulders. The only thing that if you're a sex worker, I mean, to be honest, it's not like a normal business where you have an HR department and you have a records department. And if you have an employee that transfers over to this place, you have a record of that. And I can only assume that sex workers will move around from place to place. And that could have been part of it. I don't want to make an excuse for them. I do think that whether it's a sex worker, a drug user, whatnot, if a person's reported missing, you should give it your best effort to see what the hell's going on. And if they've been receiving reports about Robert, concerns from people that knew him, because these weren't just people off the street coming in saying, hey, I heard this guy is a real piece of work, you should check him out. The people that were complaining were people that had been out on his farm, maybe worked on his farm, but they ignored it.
Yeah.
But you had something else that you had heard.
Well, okay, so I'm going to give you kind of my spicy version of what I researched and investigated and kind of ultimately found. And so, looking into some things. So I listened to some interviews that were obviously of past friends of the family. And then there was another person that was actually an ex-employee who lived there on the farm with him. This gentleman was in jail. He was addicted to drugs and got out of jail, and he just kind of needed a fresh start. I'm not really sure how he met Willie or got involved with him, but Willie said, hey, I'll help you out here. Come live on my farm and you can do some odd jobs for me. So he hired him to do some tree clearing and just kind of odds and end stuff. He'd said he'd get 50 to $100 here and there. And he said it was just enough to kind of help him just get by, so to speak. And he gave him a place to live. He lived in the trailer with Willie. But this guy was really trying to give himself a new start. So he wanted to do things the right way. And he describes one night sitting in the bedroom, and there was a little TV in the bedroom, and he was sitting there watching TV on a chair. And Willie comes in and sits on the corner of the bed and says, oh, come on. I can't remember what this kid's name was. Tom. Let's call him Tom. I can't remember. He's like, come on, Tom. You want to get a hooker tonight? Tom's like, no, I don't want to get a hooker. He's like, come on, Tom. Come on. Let's go. Come on. Let's go get a hooker. You want to get a hooker tonight? No, Willie, I don't want to get a hooker tonight. Come on, Tom. Let's get a hooker tonight. And the guy's like, no, I'm not going to do that. He's like, well, Tom, you want to know what I do with these hookers? You want to know what I do to them? And I guess he reached down underneath the bed and he grabs a belt and this thin type of wire and a set of handcuffs. And he goes on to get on top of the bed on his hands and knees, and he mimics what he's doing to these prostitutes. And he mimics grabbing an arm and puts the handcuffs on, and then he mimics putting a belt around their neck and stroking their hair, and then basically gives a play-by-play of what he does to these prostitutes. And this guy didn't want to have any part of it. So the next day, this guy gets approached as he's working on the farm. He gets approached by these two thugs and they say, "Come on, Tom, let's go in the trailer. Let's have a chat." And so these two fellas ended up beating the crap out of this Tom guy. And he feels like it was a threat or a scare tactic for him not to tell anybody about what Willie had confessed to doing the night before. So he said after that, he goes, "I didn't want to have anything to do with that farm." So he took off, he left, he jumped on the next ferry and got the heck out of Dodge. And he said, I never did go to the police because he thought, well, I'm just going to leave it up to God. And if he's really killing people, then he'll get caught. The police will catch him. So there was that story. Then there was another story from another gal who also lived on the farm. And this gal was also an employee on the farm, and same kind of background story. Drug user, was in prison, kind of hard knocks. She came out of prison, needed a fresh start. Willie evidently had some kind of in with the down and out, like he was.
I think he fit in with those types of people.
Yeah. And he also kind of gave a lot of people like that initial jobs out of prison to start on the farm. And I think it was, because he was familiar with the drug scene. And a lot of them wanted to get some money somehow just to feed their addiction, So this one gal in particular, she gets a job and she says that her job was in the office and her job was just answering the phones and getting faxes and faxing people. So she's like, I just thought it was the greatest thing next to sliced bread. Here I was getting good money and all I had to do was answer the phone, basically. But she said, that was just feeding her drug addiction. So she'd get paid, $200 and she'd spend $200 in drugs. So, but Willie kept her around and they kind of had a symbiotic relationship where they, he wasn't ratting her out for drug use and she wasn't ratting him out for what he was doing. And she ultimately found out what he was doing because he was using her to go into Vancouver and pick up prostitutes. So he kind of needed somebody, I feel like, to be his, I don't know how you would call it, but like somebody to vouch for him when he would go and ask a prostitute to come back with him.
If he's got a female with him, that prostitute might feel more comfortable getting into a vehicle with him if he's got a female already there.
Yeah, and that's exactly what happened. So she describes one night going into town and getting a prostitute, and he leans over and asks her to come back to the farm with him. And basically the way he would get these women to come with him is he'd offer them drugs, offer them food, a warm place to stay for the night, and kind of entice them that way. And so she says she, sees the female, the employee sitting in the pickup with him. And she's like, "Are you going back to the farm?" She says, "Well, yeah, I live there. I live there and work there." So the prostitute says, "Okay, well, if you're going, then I'll go." So she ultimately gets in and they go back to the farm and they start smoking and doing drugs, whatever. And so they're, high, obviously. And so Willie says, "All right, so which one of you's first?" And the prostitute and Willie take off down to their room. And so this other gal who works there, she said, so I went to my room and whatever. And she goes, well, I was down in my room for a while and something drew me out of my room. And so she said, I went, opened the door to my room and I walked around and didn't see anybody and it was really quiet. So I walked to Willie's room and opened the door and nobody's in there. There was just a pile of clothes in there and she's just can't figure out where they went to. So she goes and looks out the front door and she sees the light on to the barn. So she's like, well, that's weird. Why would there be a light on at this hour? So she said she went outside and decides to go across the yard and go to the barn. And she opens the door. And as soon as she opens the door, she looks up and she sees this prostitute hanging, split from head to toe, and just like a slaughtered pig. And she says that Willie grabs her and says, listen, you're not going to tell anybody what you saw here. And she said, well, she goes, thinking on my feet, she goes, she goes, I agreed with him. She said, no, I'm not going to tell anybody anything. I just need money to keep doing drugs. And she ultimately never told anybody. And I think that's how he got away with this for a long time. Because I think people would see things on the farm and either they were so addicted to drugs that, they still needed their fix somehow. They just kept everything a secret.
Well, he wasn't surrounding himself by people who were upstanding citizens.
Right.
I think, like you said earlier, so this guy's now a millionaire. He has a hog farm. His brother has the salvage yard, all on this piece of property. And so it's probably pretty easy for him to go out and find these people who are down on their luck. They've been in rehab or they've been in prison. They have these addictions. They have no money.
Mm-hmm.
And so he offers them a job and maybe even a place to stay. And they can come out to his hog operation, help him out in whatever fashion he needs, whatever he wants done. And then he gives them money to fuel whatever addiction or issue they have.
Right.
And they're not going to rat him out because then they're taken away from themselves. If this guy gets into trouble and he goes away, then they have no income. They have no place to stay.
Right.
And again, he's probably also selecting these people because they're not deemed credible.
Right.
So, like I said earlier, some of these people did go to the police. They did report things that they'd seen. And the police blew them off because of who they were.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the Piggy Palace part of it, the Good Time Society part of it, because that was like a little bit of a separate entity. So Dave, what was his name? Is it Dave?
It's Dave.
Yeah.
His brother.
So Dave, the brother, ultimately ran that part of the corporation or whatever you want to call it. But they would have these parties and raves, and initially a lot of the goers to these parties were a lot of bikers. So I guess at any given point there was a lot of Harley Davidsons and bikers and that.
Hells Angels, I hear.
Hells Angels.
Like some of these parties were like 2,000 people.
But this is the part where I probably have to say allegedly, or for entertainment purposes only, because this is just speculation and a rumor that I heard. But rumor is that a lot of some of the higher ups in society would also either attend these parties or view these parties from the outside.
Now, I did see that some of the people in attendance were listed as members of the Hells Angels and politicians, but not a lot of detail. That was actually pretty much it. It was like all in like 2 sentences.
So again, allegedly, there now becomes this corporation that gets involved with this Piggy Palace, which is a gambling site. And now there's some online betting going on, and I completely forget the name of the gambling site, but there was an actual investigation into this gambling site in Canada. I'll have to go back and look it up. I apologize, but apparently there was a lot of online porn being streamed from this Piggy Palace, fights, and a lot of the online betting going on through this online betting site. And as the story goes, again, allegedly, the rumor is that a lot of this online porn and betting gets a little bit darker, so to speak, and people start betting on things that are going to happen down at the basement of this Piggy Palace. So I guess where I'm getting at is that it ultimately led to, allegedly, snuff films.
I could see that because you have a guy that's into prostitutes. Obviously, that's his thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have to remind myself, this is all on a hog farm by a person who probably wasn't obviously well liked in high school. I mean, he's kind of an outcast, dirty people. And so they start throwing these parties. Now, I'm just trying to picture what might be going on that would attract that big of a crowd onto a hog farm, into a building hosted by people that nobody in the past liked.
Right.
Now all of a sudden they're millionaires, still dirty. I mean, you saw the picture, still kind of dirty people. Can't imagine it smells great. Even myself, if I wanted to go out for a weekend and I'm going to take Marissa out on a date, I'm not taking her to the middle of a hog farm, regardless of how nice that building is, to a party where there's 2,000 other people. Let's say it's just 500 other people.
Mm-hmm.
So I just tend to think that whatever's going on at these parties, is probably not good.
Yeah. Yeah. So apparently, not only did they have basement rooms underneath this building, but there was also tunnels. So in just doing a little bit more digging, a lot of, like you said, a lot of it's hard to find, but also I kind of just started digging into it just a few days ago. So I just don't really have a lot of hours into it yet. But apparently the online betting, they would allegedly bet on things like how the person is going to die in the snuff film, what type of device are they going to use, or how long it takes for them to die in the snuff film, like just really sadistic things like that. Then there's also a component of trafficking that was introduced or rumored to be going on. And like I mentioned earlier, it was really close to a railway or a seaport, something like that, so that it was easy to get, it would be easy to traffic women or children in and out. And apparently around the same time, like you said, there was a lot of women going missing out of Seattle area. So they thought maybe the two would be linked, but
well, obviously he was into the sex workers because that's who he killed.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
The other thing, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, and once again, this is a place that is, all of the employees are involved with either drugs or had criminal histories. So the entire place is completely full of not your most upstanding citizens.
Mm-hmm. However, the most interesting piece that I found out, which again is a rumor, it's alleged, but there was an actual person that was really high up that could have potentially been involved. And this person actually lived or grew up about between a mile and a mile and a half away from this farm. And he actually had a roommate at one point that was a convicted pedophile. And you might know his name. His name's Justin Trudeau.
Now, I do know, so if this would have been in the 90s, Justin did live in Vancouver. And I believe at that time, when all this was going on, he was a school teacher at the time.
Yeah.
That's all.
And then he, in the middle of the school year, just up and quit. And then he was reported that he was going to do a speaking tour. I don't know what he would be speaking about, because I have no idea.
Now, I think Justin's dad was he a prime minister as well? He was pretty high up in the government.
He was high up. But here's the story. The rumor is that Justin was not a very bright student or child or individual. Even as an adult, the rumors are that he's not very smart at all. In that there's no way of knowing why he got in the position or how he got in the position that he's in now, other than positioning himself in the same way as one Jeffrey Epstein. And that is also something that was brought up, is that it's supposedly or allegedly the Epstein Island of Canada was this Piggy Palace. And it was the same type of goings on as what was happening.
That's a dirty island.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I bet Epstein's island was nicer than Piggy Palace.
Oh yeah, I'm sure. Oh, absolutely. But yeah, it's just interesting because, you look at Epstein's upbringing, he didn't have an education to be all of a sudden become a professor at a college. He was placed there.
No, and I don't think he was necessarily, he wasn't highly intelligent. He
didn't.
Epstein was weird because he didn't have it's not like he had a big firm or a business or he was a big entrepreneur. He was just like, nobody knew how he got to where he was.
Yeah, and that's what they're rumored to say. The same thing with Justin Trudeau, is that he's not an intelligent guy, and he does not have a background, an educational background, to be in the position where he's in.
I don't know.
So here's the thing, is that it just, what it did is it really piqued my curiosity. Because like I said, it's just like the 2 days into just looking into some stuff, and I'm thinking, what in the heck is going on? I really want to look into stuff a little bit more and see if there's any other connections. But the interesting thing that I'm listening to this stuff up until the point where I got to get in the car and come here to record. And one of the charities that the Piggy Palace Good Time Society donated to was the Clinton charity.
I'm not shocked.
No.
I wouldn't
so
be
you're
shocked.
like, okay.
I'm not saying it happened, but I wouldn't be surprised.
So now this is involved with Hillary Clinton's charity? Well, that's interesting.
Well, and also, these are, God, he is a millionaire. It kind of makes you wonder what happens with a person, because I wouldn't know, obviously, if you go from just having this small hog farm, because his parents die, he's not going to run the whole thing. He probably doesn't have a ton of money, but then you sell all this property off, all of a sudden you're a multimillionaire. You got $5 million. And even if they split it 3 ways, between him and his brother, they've got 2/3 of it.
Well, and then you have their sister, who's now all of a sudden affiliated with the prime minister, the board, whatever you call it. I don't know what she did for a living to get her to that position, but it's like, this is all very interesting. And how are these people tied together? And I got to look into it a little bit more. And here's my question. If we have any listeners out there or anybody that's actually watching, please give us some information of where I can look to find out some more information, just out of my own curiosity.
I did notice that this case, the whole thing, it's hard to find anything.
I
The
wonder
only
why.
thing I found so far as court documentation was a Supreme Court case. And I think, excuse me, it might have been an appeal or something like that.
Yeah. Well, I found an account on TikTok of a supposed survivor of Piggy Palace, and this girl claims to be a child born on Piggy Palace, and she actually grew up there. And her account is that she was kept underground. She wasn't let outside very often. She never attended school, and she was highly abused. And I guess she started acting out a lot from the abuse. And because of that, then they ultimately put her in the foster care system, and she was adopted out. Why they didn't get rid of her, I don't know. I mean, you know what I mean by get rid of, but they apparently put her, got rid of her in a way of putting her in the foster system. She does say that they attempted to kill her, but.
Well, they didn't really kill, at least that I saw, anybody that worked or lived on the farm.
Well,
it seemed to be all the bodies that they recovered, or at least the remains that they recovered, were all prostitutes or people involved in sex work and drugs, not necessarily people that had prior employment or current employment on that farm.
Yeah, and her account is that there were rooms down in this basement or underneath this building, and that's like they kept people in there. And I suppose if there was that type of thing going on, like pornography it's being viewed online and other things, I'd have to keep people alive for that to keep that going.
And I think it was a newspaper article, and I have it. I'm not going to show it. And it lists out some of the things they find, and I'm not going to show it because, I mean, some of it's
graphic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people can look it up themselves if they want to see it. But it was not good.
Yeah. So he supposedly writes this book, which is now.
I'm going to take a break for just a second here. I feel a lot better.
Did you go outside?
Oh,
Okay,
Lord.
What?
Would have froze. Something would have froze if you were outside.
No, I didn't go outside. Okay.
Well, good old Willie apparently wrote a book.
Yeah, I seen that.
And apparently it's like erased from the internet. You can't find it anywhere now. It's like scrubbed clean.
For a while, it was available on Amazon, and they took it off.
It's gone now. So I guess in this book, he actually confesses to some things, but he also names some names of who is all involved or would have been involved in some of these murders also.
Did you ever find a copy of that book?
No.
See, I thought that I'd seen one available, and I don't know if it was like I don't want to say a black market type of a deal, but it wasn't Amazon, obviously, but
Right.
I thought I saw something. I wish I would have paid more attention, but
yeah, because like when he was in that jail cell with that, I don't know if he was with the cop that was undercover or if it was someone else and they just were recording his jail cell. But he said, if I'm going down for this, there's going to be like 15 others that go down with me. So
I did see that.
According to him, there was other people involved, and whether that's true or not, I don't know that we'll ever find out because I don't know that they'll ever investigate.
I kind of suspect that there's others involved. at the very least, there's other people that have information or know what was going on that
Sure.
pig farm. But
and it's interesting that, you mentioned he died, but you didn't really say how he died.
so he was murdered by another inmate. He was stabbed. It broke a broomstick off or something and stabbed him in the face with it.
Yeah, I was going to say he got Epstein, but not necessarily. He didn't hang himself, but he definitely got
Yeah.
he got outed. Like, he didn't just die of natural causes. He was taken out.
And I think he was getting ready to be transferred to another prison.
Well, I think because I think he was getting ready to go, like I said, go up for parole.
I think he was getting close. Yeah.
Yeah, because it was,
Didn't make it.
Nope.
So
anyway, so yeah, if anybody has any information they could send our way, that would be really, really helpful.
I'd like to see
Not
it.
that we're going to solve any crimes, but I'm just curious.
Well,
I'm just a nosy bee. I want to know. I like the juicy stories.
There's just not a ton. It's not like a lot of the cases that we talk about here. What?
Nothing.
Oh.
Well, yeah, because if there is really people involved that are rumored to be involved, it's going to be a cover up. We're not going to find any information.
Probably not. But
So it's going to be just,
right.
The bar stories, the rumors, the whatever. It'd be sure fun to learn about it. Anyway.
I'm open.
Anyway.
All right. Well, that's all I got. Marissa, you got anything?
Nope.
He's pretty quiet. You're probably watching are you watching a game?
She's watching wrestling.
I'm watching Husker wrestling.
Oh, okay. Well.
And I too have to use the restroom.
Okay.
But I'm waiting.
Well, I guess we'll catch you next time.
See ya.
Bye.